I was riding the bus, and really, I only had a minute to make my bus, and I was sitting in my clothes thinking, should I change it to my street clothes or should I make the bus? That's from a play a long time ago. What's up, y'all? Happy Motivate Monday. That line was just in my head. It's like sometimes you play a character and the character never leaves you. It just pops up randomly at times. So my question for you is, what are you going to do different in December? What are you going to do different in December? I learned that if you want to create a different outcome in your life, you have to do one of two things. You have to do things differently or do different things. So, what are you going to do differently this month that is going to shock the system? Sometimes people like to ease their way up on transformation. They want to sneak up on change. And I submit to you that the body and the mind will be much more responsive to a shock, to a jolt. And then you have to reenact that shock and that jolt every single day in order to take you into a brand new path. Do you remember the very first time you read a personal development book, or the very first time you started to understand scripture or sacred text or a specific religious position or idea or ideology? Do you remember the first time and it took a hold of you and everything was brand new and it was opening up new pathways in your brain and you were seeing the world completely differently? And all of a sudden, you became a scholar, a philosopher. You became an expert at this, even though you only read two or three passages, or maybe you read one book, and now all of a sudden, that's all you want to talk about. And people in your circle are kind of looking at you like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Like last week you didn't even read, and now you talking about you reading books. Well, that's a jolt, a shock to the system, because all of a sudden you were doing things differently and doing different things, and your body and mind were responsive to that, and you went all in, all in. It's the same idea as when you take on a new job. You take on a new assignment. You take on a new promotion. You take on a new relationship. You take on a new sport or activity or hobby, and you just dive in. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm going to pick up a new instrument. I'm going to learn how to do this brand new trade skill that I've never done before. And you just dive in, but you dive in with the experience of life and living prior to that moment of making a decision. See, it only takes a moment to make the decision. And in that decision, change is now instantaneous. You just have to back it up with enough activity and immediate activity that's going to shock the system. Another example, if you remember the movie Forrest Gump, or if you've ever seen any movie where there's a boot camp, all of a sudden he goes from being a civilian and he walks onto the bus. And as soon as he walks on the bus, his entire world changes in an instant. And that guy, the drill sergeant, is yelling at him and telling him to sit down and shut up. And from that day forward, for the next many months and years, he is a different human being. He shocked his system with a massive transformational movement because he changed his environment, he changed his influences, he changed his thought processes, and he didn't have to meditate or pray over it. He didn't have to read a bunch of books to learn how to do it. He just did it. Now, of course, he had the environment and the circumstance to support that transformation, but that's an example. So when you step out of your comfort zone and you move into your uncomfortable growth zone, that is a shock to the system. When you step into that class that you've never taken, that spinning class or that CrossFit class or whatever core class that is, that's going to awaken the burning lactic acid in your lungs from your vigorous workout. You've never worked out this hard before. You've never worked out to this type of intensity before. You're shocking the system, and the body responds to that. It doesn't respond as well, in my opinion, when you're just trying to, well, I'll just put it on 3 and I'm going to walk on the treadmill. And then tomorrow I'll do 3.1, and I'm just going to ease my way into it. Ladies and gentlemen, ain't nobody got time for all that. You need to dive in. If you're going to go in, put all your chips and push them in the middle of the table and go someplace you've never been before. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be fearful. You're going to have anxiety, and it's going to be painful. I promise you. It is going to be painful because you're going to have to stretch and do things that you've never done before. Some of y'all don't like to get up early. Well, all of a sudden you wake up 90 minutes earlier than you usually do. Guess what? That's a shock to the system. All of a sudden you carve out 30 minutes out of every single day to sit still and read an actual book that has pages that you can pick up. I got books all over. And then you open it up and you can read. Look at that. And guess what? You can underline and take notes and do all those things. So that's a shock to the system because you're doing something that you've never done, or maybe you haven't done it in a while. So that's the opportunity that you have in this Doing Different December. I'm challenging you to stay out of your comfort zone as much as you possibly can. I'm challenging you to really go all in on the activities. Stop thinking. Don't go into paralysis of analysis. And if you're in your head, you're dead. You don't want to be in that. Just go do. Ready, fire, aim. And when you're in that activity and you're doing the motions and you're shocking the system, then you're going to get some growth. Then you're going to awaken that growth spot in your brain. There's a scientific term for it, where it grows every time you do something you don't want to do, every time you do something that makes you uncomfortable, every time you do something that sucks. It grows, and your will, your spirit, your mental toughness, your intestinal fortitude gets stronger too. So I am challenging you for this December, doing different things and doing things differently in December. That's what it's all about. I want you to shock your system. The reason people do the cold plunge or they do a cold shower, because it's like, your body's like, everything in you physically. It's like telling you, get out, turn the water back on, turn the heat on, I can't do it anymore. That's the body telling the mind what to do. And if your body's telling your mind what to do and you're not telling your mind how to control your body, you're fucked. So don't do that. All right? Don't do that. Allow your mind to control your body. And don't let your mind control you, because if your mind controls you, don't do that. You control your mind because the mind knows you, right? The mind knows all the weak spots. It knows how to keep you comfortable, knows how to create great excuses, well-planned alibis. An excuse is a well-planned lie. The mind is designed to keep you safe, comfortable, or stuck on stupid. Don't fall for that. You control your mind. Your mind doesn't control you. So doing December differently. How about that? I like that one. Doing December differently. That is my call to action. That is my challenge for you on this Motivate Monday. If you got some value out of this message, please like and subscribe and share this message. Share it with some people that can benefit from it as well. And let's finish 2025 strong so we can have an excellent springboard into 2026. Deuces.